It wasn't flashy. No jump cuts, no screaming, no obvious plot. Just silence. A grainy figure in a dark hallway. A mask that looked like it belonged in another century, and a feeling. That strange, sinking kind of feeling. Like I was watching something that wasn't meant to be seen. It didn't even have a proper title. Just a name that looked like a file code. 11BX1371. But the weird thing is, the more I watched, the more it felt like a message. One I couldn't quite decode. And apparently, I wasn't the only one. That video started circling around forums, blogs, Reddit threads, pulling people in. And the more they looked into it, the deeper and darker it got. I won't ruin it here. You'll see what I mean. But let me just say this. Whatever you think this is, it might not be. Let's take it from the beginning. Now, back in 2015, I remember going back to the blog where it all started. Gadget ZZ'd, a Swedish tech blog. That's where the editor, Johnny Krabischler, first shared the video publicly. No note, no explanation. He wrote this post about receiving something strange in the mail, a plain envelope, no return address, just postmarked from Warsaw, Poland, and inside it, a disc. He called it a really weird CD, but it turned out to be a DVD with a string of random characters scribbled across it, so long, it took up 2 full lines. At first, he thought maybe it was just some software promo, something someone mailed him to review for his tech blog. So, like any curious person, he popped it into a spare laptop. And well, yeah, instead of code or setup files, he found the video. The clip was about 2 minutes long in black and white. No sound except this sharp, buzzing noise that honestly makes your skin crawl if you listen to it long enough. He said it didn't hit him all at once, just weird. That's the word he used. Odd. Office. But then later, when he rewatched it, he started noticing all the symbols, all the strange letters, all the stuff that didn't make sense at first glance. After a while, he gave up trying to decode it himself and just shared everything on his blog, including images of the envelope and disc. A few days after that, Gizmodo picked it up. Then Slate. Writers started comparing it to The Ring, that same feeling of you shouldn't be watching this, like it might reach through the screen and pull you in. The title, 11BX1371, wasn't even written anywhere obvious. It came from decoding a base 64-string found on the disc. Yeah. The puzzle started before the video even played. What it showed was strange. A person dressed in what looked like an old plague doctor costume. You know, long black cloak, that eerie beaked mask with the goggles. They were standing inside what looked like the remains of some kind of abandoned building. Parts of the walls were missing, and through those empty window frames you could see trees outside, like there was this whole quiet forest just beyond all the decay. The figure doesn't talk. They don't move much either, just slow, deliberate gestures. At one point they raise a hand, palm facing forward, and in the center, a small, blinking light. The blinks weren't random either. They lined up perfectly with strange beeping sounds in the background, like it was trying to send something. They also make a series of gestures, fingers held up one after the other. 3, 1, 2. I remember watching it again and again, wondering if it was some kind of code I just wasn't smart enough to crack. There were no credits, no watermark, no hint of who made it or why, just this figure, staring into the camera one moment, then turning away the next. Sometimes it looked like the camera was steady. Other times it jerked and shook like someone was filming it by hand. There were jump cuts, flashes of movement, and these moments where the image seemed to split or glitch, like reality itself was breaking for a second. And what really unsettled me was the way the figure looked directly at the camera. Not for long, just enough to make you feel seen. Not in a comforting way either, more like watched. Eventually, after a series of weird shifts and pauses, the figure ends up standing perfectly still, pressed against the wall. The video holds on that final frame for just a few seconds longer than you'd expect, just enough to leave you with questions, or maybe dread, or both. At that point, it could have been anything. An art film, a student project, some weird performance pieces, but that's when people, especially on Reddit, started digging. After watching it a few times and feeling more confused than anything, I started going through the forums to see what others were saying, and let me tell you, I wasn't the only one who felt something was off, not just creepy, not just weird. Then another strange twist came up, because people realized that before Gadget ZZ ever posted the DVD, the exact same video had already been uploaded months earlier on YouTube by a user named AETBX. No one knew who they were, but when journalists reached out, AETBX disputed Gadget Z's story. They suggested that the blog might not have gotten the video from a mysterious DVD at all, that maybe the whole "we received this package" part was just for show. That kind of messed with the timeline. If AETBX had it first, then what's the truth? Where did this actually come from? Who made it? And why send it around in such a cryptic way? And by digging further, online critics managed to track down the filming location, which, by the way, is honestly the creepiest part for me. It was filmed at the Zofiówka Sanatorium, an old psychiatric hospital in Otwock, Poland. The place had been abandoned for years. And knowing that this already unsettling video was shot inside a former mental institution just adds an entire layer of unease I wasn't ready for. Everything about this, from the audio to the visuals, the symbols, the setting, it all feels so calculated. Like someone spent a terrifying amount of time making sure every single piece was just disturbing enough to stay stuck in your head. And then, just when it felt like things couldn't get any stranger, someone came forward. But of course, that didn't exactly clear things up either. When people started commenting on it, AETBX came back confused, asking why there was suddenly so much attention on this random upload. Some thought he had to be the original creator, but he denied it completely. Later, the Washington Post contacted him. He gave his name only as Daniel from Spain and claimed the video had been sent to him too, through email, from a girl he didn't even know, who apparently said she found it on a park bench. Sounds weird? Yeah. Sounds convenient? Also yes. Things kept unraveling. Someone even traced the video back to 4chan, where it had been posted to a paranormal thread before either YouTube or the blog, which kinda made everything feel more chaotic. Like the story was shifting every time you thought you had it. Some people thought they found leads. A student film blog had shared an image from the video with binary text around the same time. But when they were contacted, the school said their site had been hacked and that the post wasn't from them at all. Just another dead end. Even more confusing, someone named Parker J. Wright popped up on Twitter briefly when asked if he had posted the video, and replied, "That's not me." Which would have ended there, except he came back. A few weeks later, a new Twitter account appeared, Parker Warner Wright. This time, he claimed he was the creator of the original video, and to prove it, he announced the release of a second video, a sequel, titled 11B-3-1369. He gave an exact countdown to the upload. 1.444 metric hours. Don't ask me why the metric part matters, but it was just cryptic enough to sound intentional. And when the sequel dropped, yeah, it was just as eerie. Same black and white vibe. Same plague doctor. This time the figure started out in the woods outside the abandoned building. The blinking hand light was still there, but the sound was different, quieter, with delicate, almost musical electronic clicks syncing with the blinks. But what really caught me off guard? Partway through the video, the plague doctor is joined by a woman in a white dress, her face completely covered in bandages. That image still haunts me a little. Later, the Daily Dot managed to interview Parker. He said he was an American living in Poland, and that the videos were meant to be an art project, something symbolic. He claimed he made the original video back in May 2015, then left 3 copies in public spaces, on a subway, in a park, and the last posted to 4chan. So in his version, AETBX had nothing to do with it. To prove he was legit, Parker challenged people to replicate his plague doctor mask, saying he designed and built it himself. Some people didn't buy it, though. They pointed out that the cloak looked different in the second video, and tried to use that as proof he was faking it. But Parker said he just made a new one, an improvement. And honestly, even Krabikler himself came around to believe him. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that it would have been way too much work for someone to fake it all this well, for this long. Apparently, the connection between them was made at some tech event. Parker told him he had his business card from somewhere, and Krabikler figured maybe they'd crossed paths at one of the many booths he'd run. So now we had a supposed creator, a sequel, a rough timeline, a face, kind of. But somehow, even with all that, the answers didn't really feel like closure. If anything, it raised even more questions. And honestly, the next part, that's where the mystery starts peeling apart in the most unexpected ways. After the second video dropped, you'd think the mystery would start to settle. But no, if anything, it only fueled the obsession, especially for people on Reddit who had already been picking the original video apart long before Wright's name even came up. The deeper they went, the more layers they found. One of the first big discoveries? That long, strange inscription on the DVD menu, the one Krabikler received. Someone eventually decoded it as 11BX1371, which is how the video got its now iconic name. But that was just the surface. The audio, that static-laced, discordant noise playing throughout the video, was far more than just atmosphere. Some users swore they could hear faint voices, one even saying it sounded like a looped phrase, "I would love to kill you." Whether that was real or just our minds playing tricks, I'll be honest, I don't know, but it didn't take long before people started breaking it down and analyzed with spectrogram analysis. Someone took the audio, converted it into visual format, and what showed up was just disturbing. And turns out, the video is packed with hidden messages. Not just shapes or noise patterns, but actual images. Still frames of mutilated women, some with their faces twisted in pain. For a while, people genuinely feared this could be the work of a serial killer. It looked real. Luckily, or maybe not so luckily, it turned out the images were taken from existing sources. One was from a disturbing indie horror film called The Bunny Game, another from a German film titled Slasher, and one was a real crime scene photo tied to the Boston Strangler. Yeah, suddenly this wasn't just a cryptic art film anymore. It felt like a warning, or worse, like evidence of something we weren't supposed to find. The messages didn't stop there. A separate spectrogram, this time from the DVD menu, revealed a skull, along with more hidden code. And when people dug into AETBX's original YouTube upload, they found the binary title translated to muerte, the Spanish word for death. Even the description translated to, "You have one less year." That felt less like symbolism and more like a threat. And it kept escalating. Near the end of the video, there's a strange visual, some kind of triangle and square layout. That pattern? It was cracked using Pigpen cipher, and it translated to a Latin phrase, ad oppugnare homines. which means to attack men. Or in a broader sense, to target people. That plague doctor costume, it wasn't just there for aesthetics. A lot of people started reading it as symbolic, maybe even literal, of bioterrorism, the Black Death imagery, the coded threats. And then there were lines like, "The eagle equals infected will spread his disease. We are the antivirus." And even more intense, "Strike an arrow through the heart of the eagle." It felt militaristic, violent, specific. And then came something that genuinely freaked me out. Hidden in a single frame insert, someone found Morse code, just one line, but it read, "Red lips like 10th." It didn't make much sense at first until someone else decoded a separate string of characters, 20 pairs of numbers, that turned out to be the exact GPS coordinates of the White House. And when people started rearranging "red lips like 10th, they found a chilling phrase, "Kill the president." At this point, it stopped being a game. Some viewers interpreted it as a direct threat, even aimed at Barack Obama, who was president at the time. Another decoded message spelled out, "Stand and fight with us, take down the black beast, kill his disease, or fall with the rest." That last line? The words felt way too targeted. The racial implication was hard to ignore. Even Krabischler himself believed there was a political message buried in all this, though he said he didn't consider it a genuine terrorist threat. That's the moment this thing jumped from being a creepy curiosity to a possible national security issue. People started speculating. Was this a legitimate bioterrorism threat? Or some kind of sleeper message meant for someone specific? The FBI reportedly even looked into it, and honestly, I'm not surprised. But of course, not everyone agreed. Some claimed it was all an elaborate viral marketing campaign for a horror movie, or maybe a twisted student project meant to stir controversy. And yeah, those are possible, but for me, it just feels too specific. Too much effort for something that never led to any actual promotion. And what's wild was after all that, Parker Warner Wright reappeared online and said something that kind of stuck with me. "You are no closer to understanding the message." But what if we literally couldn't understand it? Not because the codes were too hard or the symbols too obscure, but because the tools we used to decode it were never meant to work. There's this one theory floating around in some niche decoding forums, a spectrogram glitch theory. Basically, a few users pointed out that the spectrograms we've all been using to see hidden messages in the video might have been tampered with. Not the software, but the input. They noticed something subtle. Certain frequency bands were inverted or offset by tiny margins, almost like someone had built the audio in a way that would distort the image unless you adjusted for those shifts. So essentially, if you ran the sound through a normal spectrogram, you'd get disturbing faces, cryptic Latin, encoded threats. But if you recalibrated the data just slightly, other frames started emerging, weird ones. A symbol that didn't match the rest of the cipher logic. A shape that looked like a watchful eye, and not metaphorically, like an actual human eye embedded into the static. That's what sparked the idea that maybe the messages we all saw first were decoys, false leads, designed to distract us from a second layer no one noticed, like a magician getting you to look at the wrong hand. Which brings us back to Parker's line, "You are no closer," not just because we didn't solve the puzzle, but because we might have been looking at the wrong puzzle the entire time. And maybe that's true. He admitted he designed it so that no single person could figure it all out alone. He wanted people to work together, to chase every layer, every cipher, every whisper of meaning. And that idea led me to something even more unsettling. What if the video wasn't designed just to be solved? What if it was designed to change how we think? There's this other theory that doesn't get brought up often, but when I read it, it stuck with me. Some called it the neurosymbolic theory. Basically, the idea is that the video was crafted to mess with people on a psychological level. Not just with creepy imagery or scary sounds, but with deliberate neural interference. Things like flashing lights in non-rhythmic patterns, distorted frequencies just outside the usual hearing range, subtle shifts in the frame rate, tiny things that might go unnoticed, but still affect your brain. Some people who watched it reported feeling dizzy, nauseous, anxious, but not in a scared by a horror movie kind of way. More like unsettled in their bodies, as if their nervous system picked up on something their conscious brain couldn't. And when I rewatched the video with that in mind, yeah, I felt it. The audio doesn't just play, it pulses. The blinking light isn't just visual, it's rhythmic in a way that feels almost invasive. The gestures? They seem symbolic, sure, but almost hypnotic too. Slow, repetitive, focused. Some even compared it to visual entrainment, a real technique used to influence mood or brain waves using flashing imagery. Which makes you wonder, what if the plague doctor wasn't just sending a message through the codes? But the more I think about it, the more it feels like the real message might not be in the codes at all. It might be the effect. How easily people became obsessed, how deep they were willing to go, and how far we're still falling. And the more I sat with all of this, the visuals, the symbols, the eerie precision of it all, another theory started to make sense. One I hadn't really taken seriously at first. What if Parker Warner Wright wasn't alone? There's this theory that's floated around in a few hidden threads, especially among the people who were deep into decoding. They started to notice something odd: inconsistencies in tone, slight shifts in technique, and layers that felt like they came from different minds. Almost like the video was too much for one person to create alone and was created by multiple creators. A group, a network, maybe even a hidden community, similar to Cicada 3301. If you remember that whole internet rabbit hole, people working behind the scenes to drop clues, build the myth, control the narrative. Think about it. One person releases it on YouTube, another mails it to a tech blog. Someone else posted it to 4chan. Multiple versions. Slight differences. No consistent timeline. It's messy, but in a way that feels intentional. And that would explain why even Parker's story felt incomplete. Why someone like AETBX had it months earlier and still claimed to be just as confused as everyone else. Why Reddit couldn't crack it alone. And maybe it wasn't meant to be traced back to a single person. Maybe it was designed to be collective, from the inside and the outside, a hive mind mystery, or worse, a test. Of course, not everyone thinks this was just some internet puzzle. Another group, ones who approached it less like a mystery and more like a manifestation, believed that 11BX1371 wasn't a message at all, but a ritual. Think about it. The symbolism, the Latin phrases, the masked figure, the hypnotic noises, the disorienting editing, the coordinates, even the body movements. They weren't just for show. Some viewers started to connect the dots between the video and elements of sigils and ritualistic art. In their view, the act of watching the video was part of the ritual. Each viewer, unknowingly participating in a mass digital invocation. The repetition of symbols, the coded phrases, the numbers. They believed it was structured like a spell, a modern rite, a performance built to channel something. Maybe not a demon, not a god, but something equally intangible, a fear, a thought, a reaction. Some even claim the sound design itself was structured to disrupt brainwave patterns, not in an overt way, but enough to cause unease, nausea, or sleep disruption, as if your body recognized it before your mind did. If that's true, then maybe this wasn't about who made it at all. Maybe it's about what it did to you, the moment you let it in. And few people so suggest that 11BX1371 is related to other strange internet mysteries. Like the first one that comes to mind is Cicada 3301. Starting in 2012, it dropped a series of digital puzzles, in tricky ciphers, careful photo clues, secret website drops, that skyrocketed into legend as the most elaborate puzzle of the internet age. People whispered about intelligence agencies, hacker cults, encrypted initiations, but like our Plague Doctor video, nothing concrete ever emerged. Then there's Petscop, a deeply unnerving YouTube series masquerading as Let's Play Nostalgia. Viewers thought it was a simple preview for a lost PlayStation game, but every cryptic clip, missing frame, coded dialogue pulled you into a private sorrow masked as a childhood pastime. The creator stayed anonymous for years, controlling exactly what you saw, and hinting it was all planned for deep immersion. Think about it. 11BX1371 uses hidden audio spectrograms, indecipherable codes, silent Plague Doctor symbolism, all designed to pull you deeper. Just like Cicada and Petscop, it holds you in, giving you enough to feel safe, but always offering just enough to make you look again. These aren't isolated cases. They're part of a growing genre, mystery as experience, not explanation. Viral artifacts meant to pull you into a maze where the maze is the point. So, if 11BX1371 isn't just a one-off weird video, what does that make it? A relic of a new internet folklore, a digital ritual without a temple, a code that makes us ask questions, even as the silence grows louder. Because even with everything laid out, something about this still doesn't feel solved. And maybe it was never supposed to. By now, most people thought the whole thing had been cracked. The codes were decoded, the images identified. Warner had stepped forward. Even the location was confirmed. But somehow, it still didn't feel done. Even when Wright explained how he'd left copies of the video in a subway, a public park, and on 4chan, there were still pieces that didn't quite fit. Why mail it anonymously to Gadget ZZ? Why did AETBX have it months before anyone else? And if it really was just an art project, why encode GPS coordinates for the White House? So yeah, maybe we'll never know the full truth about 11BX1371. Maybe that's the point. But if you've made it this far, I'm guessing you felt it too. That pull, that quiet unease, that tiny voice in your head wondering if watching this video somehow changed something. I won't say you're cursed, but sleep tight tonight, all right? If this kind of deep dive into internet mysteries is your thing, go ahead and like the video, subscribe for more dark corners of the web, and drop a comment below telling me what you think 11BX1371 really was. Art, ritual, warning, or something else entirely. I'll be in the replies. See you in the next one.